Awesome. So kick it off with just the sports landscape in general. Sports, esports, everything. It has changed a ton over the last 10 years. Everything has changed. The addition of fantasy sports, what's happening with esports, innovation like that. So what has happened within your specific industries, and also where do you see some trends going in the future? Anyone?
I think from an esports side of things, statistics are one of the biggest and most important things that the industry needs. And from gaming, all of these things can be funneled in through different APIs, which brings a lot to the table when it comes to forming leagues and following those stats. But that all obviously stems from traditional sports and calculating all of the different information into readable content. So as this industry grows in the esports realm, we've really seen it take advantage of already some of the existing platforms like statistics and whatnot from the traditional sports world.
Yeah, I would say 10 years is a long time, right, in the product technology world, so a lot has changed. I would say from a company focus, if you went back 10 years, NBC, Golf Channel would be talking about viewership. You look at it today, and we actually have a statistic called golfership, because if you picture it, you watch golf on TV, but it's one of the few sports where people play it their entire life. So there's an entire lifestyle that's in there. And one of the things that we did, NBC did, was went looking outside of broadcast to find other industries related to golf that make sense. So over that time, there's been a lot of acquisitions, about 17 acquisitions within Golf Channel. We have technology that runs at golf courses, believe it or not. We sell tee times, very similar to like OpenTable, but for golf. So a lot of different technology and businesses now actually support the typical broadcast side. On the broadcast side, probably, it's not revolutionary nowadays, but really over that time, you're talking linear broadcast back then, digital came in, but being able to stream sports is actually a big deal. Now we're going into the VR, AR world, but streaming is big, and if you think about a typical venue for sports, like an NFL venue or a basketball venue, it's a single venue, but there's a lot of sports where you have, like golf, it's actually 18 venues during a tournament. So there's 18 areas where there's actually broadcasts happening all together. And typically in the old days, or even currently in linear, you're basically just seeing a highlight of everything going on. But if you think about streaming, you can now broadcast from every single one of those 18 venues, economically over the web, et cetera. So a lot of that's happening with golf, with Olympics. If you watch NBC Olympics, very similar to that. You can watch anything at any time.
So I think my time at the Orlando Magic, when we started, we were focused on bringing a new arena to Orlando. We played at what originally opened as Orlando Arena, was the TD Waterhouse Center, and then became, before we moved into Amway Center, it was named Amway Arena. And I think in sports for a long time, on the team side, it was about new facilities, and you're still seeing some of that where teams are focused on opening new arenas that provide ways to improve fan experiences or new products to sell and monetize. That might be suites or corporate partnership opportunities. And I do think that is kind of part of what's revolutionized the space, but I even think technology has perhaps more so. Fundamentally, both for engaging in terms of viewership or streaming, esports, but also ticketing. If you think about StubHub and the secondary ticket markets, that really came of age in around 2008, 2009. And it fundamentally changed the way that sports teams thought about selling tickets, because for a long time, we were unsophisticated, and you would charge the same price for every game. And what the secondary ticket market did was reshaped our entire thinking. So games are valued differently by consumers based on the day of the week, the opponent, the time of the year, all these different circumstances. So we started to change prices, and I think what that has now grown into, and is also being forced by the outside market, is how do you think about subscription products? How do you think about non-seat specific products where people just want to come to the arena and then maybe choose at a later time whether they want to sit in a particular seat? So I think that there's a lot that has been changed by technology, not just around watching our games and streaming our games and interacting with us maybe through video games, but then also actually coming to an arena is slowly changing from what has just been like, I have 2 seats to a game.
And perfect segue to the next question, because a lot has changed with the in-stadium and what it's like in the fan experience in a stadium. I know for me personally, when I go to a Bucks game as a season ticket holder, I can honestly spend half the time looking down at my phone, checking fantasy football scores, seeing what's going on around the country. There's always a lot of things going on. So what has the Magic done in particular to really engage the fans to another level in the stadium? And what are you looking towards, and what trends are you seeing overall in sports for the in-stadium engagement?
So there's a few things that I will point to, and a lot of this is rooted in data and research and analytics that we've had. So one example, we've worked with technology partners, some that are startups. So there's a company called Experience, which is based out of Atlanta, that integrates kind of into Ticketmaster's system. And what we worked with them on, originally they were just providing seat upgrades. So you come to the game, you weren't happy with your location, maybe you wanted to sit in a better spot. Like in game, you could actually browse for improved seats to move into. What we wanted to do was, we knew for season ticket holders, the number one behavioral predictor of whether they were going to renew their membership was whether they were using their tickets. The NBA season's a lot. There's 41 regular season home games. Sometimes we play on back-to-back nights. So using your tickets, whether you're personally attending, reselling them, giving them to someone else, is kind of almost a burden at times. So what we did was, through research and our analytics, we gave season ticket holders the ability through our mobile app to return their tickets to us and receive a digital currency that they could use to buy tickets to a future game, upgrade their seats, buy concessions or retail merchandise. So essentially what we've tried to do is flex their investment, which was started as 2 seats to every game, and say, personalize this however you want. The benefit to us is we recoup those tickets and can resell them on the primary marketplace at a higher rate. And then we also get all of the data from how that season ticket holder then spends their Magic money, which is what we call it. So I think that's kind of an evolution that we are pushing and trying to move, I think, more towards is how do we maybe sell memberships, and it doesn't even have to come with assigned seat locations to start. It can be you want a hospitality suite, you want a courtside seat one game, you want a big group to be able to host people at your church or your school or whatever the case might be. So I think we're looking at how we can leverage technology partners and technology to improve the fan experience. The other thing that I would tell you is that's changed about the in-venue experience is when we go to Chick-fil-A or Starbucks, we interact with their mobile apps, we order food, in advance, we do in-seat delivery. So we've brought that to the sports venue where you can order food to your seat, you can do express pickup, you can buy unique experiences from us, like a visit from our mascot, or go down to the court after the game and shoot, that are really unique and only going to be available in the sports space. So I think those are some ways that we're trying to think about the in-venue experience and how it is truly differentiated from watching at home.
That's great. And still nothing beats being in the crowd and being a part of it, the last second win when that takes place, the ups, downs, the highs, the lows. It's always a blast, and nothing will ever really be able to take that away or replicate that.
Agreed.
But there are also trends of people who are moving a lot more towards watching on television and staying home. And I know a lot of sports are trying to think about ways of doing that and really engaging the fan at home. So Steve, as someone who works in the television space, what are you doing to really engage the fans to a whole new level?
Yeah, I would say broadcast-wise, a lot of things we've done related to just NBC as a whole. Always experiments going on with 2-screen experiences, so you can watch the linear stream but be able to watch the guy you want to watch go around the golf course on your personal screen. Stats are a huge thing also. All the fans love to look at stats. I think the biggest thing that's coming, and just because all the regulations are changing, is basically betting and wagering on sports. 80% of golfers are gamblers, or I'm not saying degenerate gamblers, just gamblers. They like to wager, it adds something to it. And I think most sports fans do that. I do that, on a Sunday sitting with my friends, And so there's billions of dollars exchanging hands, already out of a market, and trying to come up with ways to, add more entertainment and make it not so friction to get into wagering. Like, a lot of people are intimidated by that, and there's ways through an entertainment venue to make it a little easier and less intimidating.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in with the esports side of things is definitely, for most people, very new. right? Traditionally, it's always been online. You've been watching on platforms like Twitch or Mixer, but it's one of those things where as it continues to evolve and some of these games and tournaments get bigger and bigger, you start seeing them take up huge spaces and really transform these venues where people are, just their jaws are hitting the floor going, wait, this is for a video game. So, at Full Sail, we just built the largest esports arena on any college campus in the country, and opened it up in May. And one of the first big events that we did was with the NBA 2K League for their mid-season event, which was called The Ticket. And they all came down, and it was a 3-day production, and it was fantastic. And watching people come in to support their team, whether that was the Magic or the Heat or any of the other teams in the league, it was really exciting and interesting to see the fan engagement, being able to not just watch this on stream or on Twitch, but to be behind the players as they're celebrating. And if you've ever watched the 2K League, there's definitely some trash talk here or there, which makes it really engaging to be in the crowd for that, which is a lot of fun. But I think that that's a big transition that we're really seeing now, from on stream to actually go into a venue and participate in that.
Can you explain in a little bit further depth of what is esports? What is it doing? What do you mean by 2K League? Who's actually playing? Who are the players? What are the age groups and demographics that are a part of this? And what does that really mean for kind of the future of sports? And if you even look at, forgetting basketball, but thinking a sport like football, which is really under a lot of controversy for the head injuries, what could that potentially mean for the future of sports as a whole? Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting time, and I think there's people on both sides of the panel of where it's going to go. Esports is competitive, video games. Any game that has a competitive aspect to that, where you can play another player, and it's a challenging, effort to win said game. That's essentially esports. As time has gone on, and developers have continued to specifically make games for the esports market, they've formed things like professional leagues, like the Overwatch League. League of Legends has its own league. And so these developers, they have the ability to actually own the game. Unlike basketball, no one owns basketball, right? So they're able to create these leagues that are generating a lot of, obviously, profit, in different regions around the country. But really the demographic is quite interesting because it's very young. We see, athletes at 14 to mid-20s is really the range that we see people. As time goes on, that's changing, though. It's been argued that are you at your prime as an athlete at 19? Do you have your whole life figured out? Probably not. So as you continue to grow and this industry continues to grow, yes, maybe some of your hand-eye coordination may not be as great as it was when you were a kid, but I really think that we're gonna continue to see, professional esports players, continuing to grow with age, in this industry. But as far as the future of professional sports, I'm really excited to see the NBA, even the NHL really getting involved with the esports scene, because it is definitely the future of not only competitive gaming, but a lot of sports. And, kids that are growing up in this digital age, they may not be as interested in as watching professional basketball or going to a baseball game as they are watching Twitch and their favorite, streamer playing Fortnite. It's definitely a different world. So for these leagues to get involved now is really a crucial moment for the future of what sports and esports can do together.
Yeah, and so we actually are partners with Full Sail University. Yep. The NBA participates in the NBA 2K League. So if you're not familiar with it, we draft every year. We have 6 players that move to Orlando that we put up and have a training facility for. We hosted the first kind of local tournament at Full Sail University, and our players range from 19 up until 30 years old. They traveled to New York City to play in a studio against other teams from throughout the NBA. and the league consists of males and females, people from all over the world. It's an incredibly diverse league, and it's really cool, and it's growing. So this year I think we'll have 23 teams of the 30 teams, including for the first time a non-NBA sponsored team with Gen G based in California. But it is, I think, a great example of how a traditional sports is looking at esports as a way to grow its league, because to play in the NBA, you usually have to be incredibly tall and athletic, and to play in the NBA 2K League, you don't have to have some of those capabilities, but you do have to be an incredibly skilled gamer.
Yep. And anybody can be a skilled gamer, from a young kid to someone that typically you wouldn't see. It just really depends, and I think that's a great opportunity for people to compete at a high level of anything, they from across the board. So that's really exciting.
And the other thing that I would add is with Twitch, what's amazing to watch is the way that people engage with the sport and with the athletes. And I definitely think that is applying change to traditional sports, where we have our players go on and stream, and they are interacting with their fans in real time, answering questions. So there's an accessibility to it that is incredibly rare, but I think is now kind of creating positive pressure on players in the NBA and in golf and elsewhere to kind of be accessible through social media or other technology channels that is really interesting.
Do you think taking esports, taking some of this engagement, social media, do you think that's attracting more of like the everyday sports fan? I mean, I know me as a sports fan, I'm kind of that upper 0.01% of a sports fan, and as I said, self-proclaimed sports junkie, but most people are just the everyday sports fan. How do you think that's attracting different sports fans from around the world, really? And all three of you, that's a question for.
I mean, if you look at what Twitch is doing with Thursday Night Football, they're broadcasting it on Twitch, and they're allowing broadcasters and streamers to co-stream it. Basically, they use a green screen and they put themselves over it, and they're interacting with their chats in real time while watching the games, and having that kind of multi-layered interaction while watching a traditional sport has really taken off. As far as the Twitch aspect of traditional sports is concerned, because it's always been a platform focused on playing video games and streaming video games. So I think that crossover that's happening right now is just the early stages of what we could see, down the road as far as the interaction is concerned. But definitely a good part.
Yeah, I'd say, believe it or not, even golf, it's got a different age demographic. I'd say probably the opposite of esports. But in general, though, it is even influencing there. The European Tour set up a tournament basically using a golf video game where you could play against the pros, et cetera. It was a big hit in Europe as an experiment I think just last year. And the interesting blend of things, I think esports is even blending into traditional in our world. There's now platforms, and we're actually working on platforms where, traditionally a golf tournament would happen at a single golf course, a board up on the side. But now there's things like virtual golf tournaments, which is almost like a blend of esports where it's all connected online, and it's a massive tournament that happens over a set amount of time, where anybody can go play on any course and basically live all their scores back up to scoreboards, using a traditional game, but sort of making it better by sort of e-sporting it.
Well, just thinking about what I've seen in the world of basketball, similar to that, there's a company that the NBA is working with called Home Court, which is an app that you can download and pay a subscription to, where you basically can set it up and film yourself shooting, and it will track all of your shots, track how many you make, catalog it, and keep that information available for you. And then it also kind of can create competitions for you with other players around the world that are also in that app. So if you think about kind of the application of that for youth, I mean, now you basically can go in, and the same way that you would have had to manually chart your shots, you can have technology charting your development and your performance and skill set, and then you also can kind of see where you stand maybe to other people within your age group, within your size range. So I think that is another example of maybe the fusion of two of those. And for us, it's really important from a fan development perspective. I do think that we look at esports and just video game as a way to tap into a younger audience and bring them to the game of basketball. That's obviously not our only approach at kind of building fans. Some of our fan development may be around just like discounted ticket products or offers to get you to come out to a game and experience the entertainment options around it. You may not care about basketball at all, but if you've been to an NBA game, you know that there's a lot going on other than the basketball game itself. So, but I do think that like what's incredibly interesting about esports is it opens up the kind of the youth world to people that aren't just kind of talented basketball players, but have an appreciation for the game and for competition.
That's great, and I could see some of the statistics, some of that running too, helping with recruiting, and it really changes a lot of landscapes in a lot of traditional industries that have been the same for a long period of time, of college scouts that are flying all over the country to watch somebody play a game of baseball and hope they have a great game and take the stats back. On that line, these industries that are really changing, I've heard a lot of talk in here, whether it's talking about innovation labs in some of our phone conversations, acquisitions, some of the traditional business terms that have never really been used in sports before until the last few years. So what are your different organizations doing to really help in that realm and push the envelope to another level?
Well, so I think innovation with our organization has been fueled in a number of different ways, but one way was we were the first NBA team to create an innovation lab, which was a physical space at our RDV Sportsplex office in Maitland, where really we focus on using design thinking methodology to address key business and operational challenges. So we've had probably 60 projects go through the lab that have resulted in renovations to our arena, to improve business processes, to new ways of thinking about how we activate our social media. So I think for us, innovation to date has been predominantly focused on applying kind of design thinking internally and improving the way that we operate with that methodology, gaining empathy, developing prototypes, and kind of thinking through that. There are teams now that are taking maybe a more venture capital or a fundraising aspect to it as well. So the Philadelphia 76ers would be an example. The San Francisco 49ers have done some work in that space as well. The other thing that I think has really fueled innovation in sports, and I'll go back to kind of the secondary ticket market, but is data. And data not just in the business world, but if you think of like what's happening in the game of basketball, if you follow it, the game is played totally different now than it was 15, 20 years ago. There are more three-point shots taken. People realize that it's a more efficient way to play if you take three-pointers and get to the free throw line. In every NBA venue, there are 6 cameras that are on the catwalk above the court that are taking the XY locations of every player, the officials, and the ball 25 times per second. So there's a tremendous amount of data that's available to basketball teams to make decisions around the game that they never were able to with just a traditional box score. And I'm sure that there's similar examples in golf, but now you're getting appreciation for the sport where you can measure defense and you can measure rebounding ability and you can measure pace and how far a player's running and a lot more than you ever could before. So I think that obviously is great for the game of basketball. It's also really interesting to fans. So I think our goal is to how do we tap into some of that insight and use that to improve fan experiences and offer different fan experiences, whether it's in venue or at home or in our app.
Yeah, and I feel like, innovation is kind of the cornerstone of what we do at Full Sail. If you're unfamiliar with the school, we focus on degrees that are anywhere from, game design to film to production. And obviously with the building of the Fortress, which is our esports arena, that's a classroom at the end of the day, which a lot of people, it's, we're going to compete in this space, but our students are in there working and doing projects and working on their labs. Every event we do, we have students that are working those events. So they're getting real-time experience in that. And I think one of the things, and just like basketball, not everybody's gonna grow up to be a professional basketball player, but there's so many opportunities in the industry and the business of sports and basketball, and the same goes for esports. And every one of the degree programs that we offer at the school has, in some way, shape, or form can tie into everything that's going on in the esports industry. So when it comes down to that innovation side of things, we're really trying to integrate our students into these new worlds and this new industry. Much like if you remember like the social media kind of boom. Back in the day, if you told someone that you were a social media manager, they would just kind of laugh at you and think it wasn't true. But now, a business can't thrive or run without someone that is taking care of all of that. And so, the esports industry is in that same world right now in the United States. And we're really excited for our current students as well as some of our graduates that are out there, representing, what they've learned at the school and doing this in the esports world.
Yeah, I would say innovation-wise, I would say our whole 200-person team is basically an innovation lab at all times. I mean, we hire that way. We hire more people from small startups than we do big companies just because we like that thought. Everything, is formalized in design thinking, but it's literally trying to figure out the best way to get something done. One thing's an idea, there's another thing to take that idea and make money from it. So we have everybody across the board in our group, is very creative. So one of the things that we built a while back was the ability to order food, similar to what the Magic does, but when you're on a golf course. If you're a golfer, the biggest problem with golf is it takes a long time to play. So your whole day is going to be taken up. So we look at ways to innovate and make sure that we can do that faster, like get them checked in faster, make it so the play is faster. And one of the things that I know, because I'm not a super great golfer, I'm a techie, but I have to drink a lot to get good. But one thing you notice right away when you're on a golf course is you'll be able to get a beer when you get on the course, then you'll never see anybody again forever, right? So the idea there was, hey, why don't we create, add to our app a way to just order food, because we have the technology that runs in the golf course, inside there for the F&B, food and beverage, point of sale, all of it's run through our technology. Let's just, take our public app that everybody gets to book tee times and link it to the back end and create an experience. So it's no longer thinking about apps. It's like, let's rethink of what the experience is for a golfer to go on a course. And, it's a little tough for us because we don't own the golf course, we own the technology, so you have to not only get your customers to understand, the golfers to understand, you have to educate the golf course to want to be able to put these functions in. But those things came from people in our group. One of the cooler things that came out of it is once we did that, like 2 minutes later, a guy that works for us, Mike, he's like, hey, we need to create robots that deliver the beer. And I'm like, that's sort of crazy, but hey, go give me a pitch on what it looked like. And he drew up like a cooler with 6 wheels. I'm like, okay, we're not going to go into hardware. I did look at, I went a little bit further and looked in, but we're just like, well, wait. And then like last year, I was looking at TechCrunch, and if you're aware of these last mile delivery, Starship's the one that's on campuses now. And we looked and there was this 6-wheeled cooler that can drive itself around cities. We're like, well, it surely can do a golf course. Called them up, and now we have robots delivering beer out in California now as a prototype. So all came from people within the group throwing out crazy ideas, but more importantly, figuring out a way to execute on it.
If anybody in the audience wants to know what to get me for my birthday this year, a robot that delivers beer, perfect. A little bit of a curveball, not one that we talked about ahead of time, but there's some trends in technology that are really affecting everything. If you think of blockchain, if you think of XR, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence and machine learning, what of these do you think is going to come next to affect your fan engagement in the sports world? Bennett?
Yeah, I mean, there's already VR esports happening. It's on the smaller scale, right now. But there's a couple companies in Orlando that are trying to, be the people really spearheading that. So I think as VR continues to evolve, people love to be competitive. I mean, that's really how this all starts, is people want a challenge, they want to be the best, and in these new technologies that they continue to roll out, that's really what we're going to continue to see.
Yeah, I would say Comcast, has invested in a few companies in that live VR that does live. Our interest is heavily in, making a great experience for live events, which in the VR world is still probably years away for a great experience. A lot of experiments now are like 360 video, which, like at a basketball arena, if you saw the Warriors game last year, you could put your VR headset, sit there, and probably 10 minutes later, like, okay, that's awesome, but it really doesn't do much for me. So it's really an experience thing when you get to VR. And so things that are happening now but are in very early stages, you're getting to, like volumetric cameras where it's not like a flat 360 video. It's literally you can move around in the video, which would be awesome for live sports. But the technology back end of trying to backhaul all that data, because it's a massive amount of data, and then push it out onto the internet are still things that are way out there. But I know people, like to say, well, VR is sort of overhyped. It is a bit, but it's one of those things like in the early days, there's going to be some massive breakthroughs on the back end of things that'll push it to a next level and change the way people look at it for even entertainment purposes. It's just a lot of effort on the back end to make it perfect right now, but those are all technical problems that are very easy for startups and many companies working on it today to fix.
So for professional sports organizations, really the fundamentals of the business kind of boil down to get people to your venue or get people to watch on television. And I think in the near term, you brought up blockchain. I do think the ticketing world is continuing to change and move more and more to digital ticketing, where the ticket is unique to you as a person, and that can come with additional amenities or other kind of elements of that ticket that could leverage blockchain technology. So we are working with Ticketmaster to basically have a totally mobile ticketing experience at our arena. We already have about 70% of fans coming in using tickets that are on their phone, either in our app or mobile web. That unlocks a ton of data and information on who actually is coming to our building and allows us to remarket to them and better understand them and personalize their experience. So I think that is you're going to see a lot kind of in the next number of years with just sports teams continuing to adopt that from a ticketing perspective. I think from like VR, what I would agree with is that right now I feel like it's a little out there. I do think in the future you could watch an NBA game from like a courtside perspective or from a coach's view perspective, and I think that brings tremendous opportunity where now maybe you're paying a different rate to experience the game a different way. So obviously we all are familiar with just kind of the broadcast play-by-play cameras as they are today and the way that they've always been, but that doesn't mean that someone may not be willing to pay to experience the game in a different form or fashion. So I think that it will transform in the future. The other thing is just making, in sports, what I think is going to be a big disruptor is just viewership. Because for so long, a business model across all sports has been kind of buying the television rights, and teams have local deals, and then the NBA has kind of national deals with ESPN and ABC and TNT. But as we all know, like streaming and subscription services are changing kind of that world, and I think that you're going to see sports teams and kind of entertainment properties evolve over time as well.
I wanted to jump in real quick. It's a little bit outside of the sports realm, but we have on average anywhere from like 12,000 to like 15,000 online students at Full Sail as well. And a lot of those students do receive VR headsets and they actually attend classes in VR. And I was talking to an instructor a couple weeks ago in the computer animation program, talking about a high-level 3D complex math equation, and the student just couldn't get it. On paper, it looked like a different language, and it wasn't until they put the headsets on and actually explained it in VR, where you can see it and realize what that equation looks like, where the student just goes, "Oh, I got it," And so it's really changing not only the sports world, but also the education industry with what you're able to do and actually visualize in a 3D environment, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, that can absolutely change in a lot of places. Some people learn visually, some audio, some by doing. And so really even learning skill sets for future sports, for future math equations, anything of the above that can make a real difference. This has been great. I could ask questions forever, but we're actually here for you. So does anybody in the audience have any questions that they would like? Ed?
How do you guys see the mass adoption of more wearable AR, which is probably coming in the next 3 to 4 years? How do you see that changing the fan experience and enhancing the fan experience from gaming to golf to arenas?
I think any wearable tech is going to only improve things. I think from a competitive standpoint, it may not be legal. If you have some glasses that can detect where the enemy is, it's taking the skill out of it. But I think that's only going to continue to push forward the technology that's represented in esports. But I'm also super excited for that too.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely, for anybody who wants to build it, I'd be happy to hear it. There's definitely a world for the casual golfer, millions of casual golfers who have, you'll see them out there with, and they cause slow play as they literally pull out of their bag this thing and they shoot a radar, shoot a line of sight to the flag to figure out, what the perfect shot, what I don't do. I literally just chuck it there. But there's people that good that use that. But, and then they use apps to see where all the hazards are because you literally cannot see everything in front of you. It may turn dogleg. I mean, you can easily take that data and it's mainly just the technology you wear being in a good form factor. They would easily wear something that literally just shows you that stuff through your glasses where everything is. It would be the most amazing thing ever.
So are you talking about for players, like the actual players of the game, or for fans?
I think, with the second Apple releases AR glasses, that I think you'll see mass adoption, like talking like wayfinding or player data for fans.
Yeah.
To see it.
Yeah.
Are you working on any of
So we are working on that. Nothing that's obviously that advanced just yet, but I think where a lot of our original innovation focus was around in-game was like utility. Like, I want to order food and beverage. I want to bypass the line at a concession stand. I want to upgrade my seat. Now that we've gotten those basics, we're now looking at how do we enhance the experience, whether it's in our arena or at home. So I think we're working with, like an example, we're actually with UCF FIA to develop a game for like children to who can come into our app and play with Stuff, who is our mascot. We may do something where, stealing kind of like from Pokemon, if you're in the arena, you can play a game where like you search the arena to find stuff, and it's unique to those who are coming to our game. But then I think that there's going to be opportunities where at home we want to engage you, and whether that's with our broadcast partner, Fox Sports Florida, or others, to kind of incentivize you to just like participate in the season with us and find different ways to use AR for that. So I think kind of those are even like very near term. Our hope is that over the course of this season, you'll start to see some of those products make their way to fans.
The other thing too, there's a great Florida company that's doing a lot of innovation out of Miami called Magic Leap, and a lot of people have heard about them, and raising in the billions of dollars. And in some of their demo videos, they have videos of LeBron James playing one-on-one basketball on your coffee table. And it's like bringing the game to life right in your living room. And that can also help enhance the fan engagement both at home, but also get that reality feel to make you want to go to the game a little bit more as well.
Yeah, as a tip for all the startups doing UX experiments, I'll tell you there's a simple rule. If there's an easier way to do it than what you're going to do, they'll stick with the other way. We ran into it with voice. We've experimented with all sorts of form factors and channels. Voice is huge. Amazon Alexa, great for asking for music. As we all know, that's like their number one thing. They'll even say 90% of the use of it is music and the rest is light bulbs.
I'm part of that 10%.
Timers and whatnot. And that may improve over time because it's just for partners working in those ecosystems. It's not like, it's harder than going on your app to do something because, Amazon's got all the words at the top level. If you want to create something, you have to then have your user tell it to go to a different level and then say something, which as soon as you have to do that, people aren't going to use it. It's a waste of time. So there's always that. I think another good example, I'm going to plug Comcast because I got bad rep on cable, but I finally got the cable. And they have a voice remote, and I don't know any channel numbers on my box. So literally, because you just tell it, CBS, NBC, the show, an amazing UX, and it got me away from using it. But it's really as simple as that. We've had a lot of failures in that area, always trying something new. We always try everything in a small way. But whether it's AR, VR, some new voice thing or whatever you do, make sure that inherently it's easier to use than existing things today, no matter how cool it is.
So an upgrade to that birthday present would be a robot that brings me beer that's Alexa activated, so I can just call it out by voice and don't have to actually do anything active. Perfect. Other questions? Anybody? All right. Well, do you guys have anything else to add? We have 5 more minutes. Anything else? Anything for the future? Anything changing? One last mic drop of a statement to leave everybody with.
If you're interested in esports and seeing what it's all about, definitely follow Full Sail Armada on Twitter. You can see any of the events coming up that are open to the public. We do quite a few of those. Yeah. That's a good way.
Or check out Magic Gaming. And check out Magic Gaming.
There you go.
And take up golf.
I'll definitely go play with you. That way we can have a couple of good drinks on the 18 holes. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate this time. Thank you to the panelists.